Hey, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of Cloak and Dagger Season 1, Episode 6, Funhouse Mirrors. Okay, so it opens with Evita and her aunt. Her aunt can sense something about Tyrone. She can sense something that's coming. I don't know necessarily about Tyrone, but she could sense something that's coming. And so she's sitting down to do a reading for what she calls the city. And she's going to look at the past history. I'm sorry, I'm near a window. I saw some huge birds fly across. She's trying to look at the past of the city so she can determine what may be coming now or coming in the future, the very near future. And so we flash to Tyrone. Tyrone's been following Dwayne. Dwayne that's in business with O'Connor's, the cop that shot his friend, Tyrone's brother. Yeah, he's in business with him on this whole drug thing. So Tyrone goes to Dwayne claiming that he wants a job. And of course Dwayne was like, oh, you want to build houses? He was like, no, I want to work for you. Meaning he wants to do work. He wants to be a drug dealer. He wants to run his drugs for him. So of course Dwayne was like, well, now I don't have any openings, and you ain't going to college. You can do, you can get out of here. You can, I bet there's some cheerleader just waiting to take all your problems away. And of course Tyrone is kind of playing up the fact that he lost his last game. And he's like, his future at this point is uncertain because, he lost the game. He's kind of down and don't know what's going to happen. And so Dwayne was like, well, basically, no. It's like, no, I don't have any openings. And that was pretty much the end of that. And so, what I should go back a little bit. While when Tyrone got there, Dwayne was actually talking to one of his runners, and he was telling him where to go. I guess where he's going to be posted up to sell, and about how he needs to bring the money back. So while he's leaving, that's when Tyrone and Dwayne had this conversation. So after they ended that conversation, the runner was just leaving. So Tyrone, for whatever reason, decided he's going to follow the runner, the drug runner for Dwayne, and Tyrone is not built for that because the guy knew he was following him, and he dipped behind the building, and Tyrone came around, and he ends up snatching Tyrone and pulling the gun on him. Was like, look, Negro, stop following me. So stealth is not Tyrone's middle name. He just sucks. He sucks at it, right? So okay, so we flash to Tandy. Tandy has caught up with Mina. And Mina, of course, her father actually died in the Roxxon explosion. And so she walks up to her like she was referred to her by Mr. Carruthers. She's supposed to be Mina's intern, and Mina's looking at her like, I didn't ask for an intern. And then she kind of looked at her and she was like, okay. Because Tandy kind of fits, I guess, Mr. Carruthers' type. She's blonde, petite, beautiful, so Mina was like, oh, I get it. And so then, Tandy's playing, I am so sorry, that whole song and dance, right? So it didn't take any time for Mina to be like, okay, you know what? You're going to need waiters. Basically, have her all of the equipment that she's going to need for whatever research that Mina's doing. And so O'Reilly, back at the precinct, O'Reilly was interviewing some woman, and she storms out and flips her off. And I mean, it was a whole big scene because everybody in the room kind of turned to look at the lady leaving. And so the officer who she was talking to before, who kind of felt some kind of way when she mentioned O'Connor's name in the drug dealing, he goes over and talks to her, and he explained to her basically how things work there. Like, people turn a blind eye to things, and the dust that you're kicking up is forcing people to pay attention. And so she was like, well, that's the point. And he was like, she was like, that's the point. That's the whole point. And he's basically explaining to her, like, I don't know if you really want the kind of attention that you think that you're after, but basically, if I was you, I would leave that alone. But of course, O'Reilly's like, no, I'm getting to the bottom of who this asshole is. So Tyrone went to see his resident con woman for advice. So I went to see Tandy, and basically he told her that he tried to get into the organization, claiming that he wanted to be work for him and the whole thing. And he told her about the comment about him not having any vacancies and openings. And so she was like, well, create one. And so basically she's telling him to get, I guess to find out what he can about the guy that pulled the gun on him, and see if he could kind of get him off the board so that it leaves a spot for him to get in. That was the gist of their conversation. And so he was asking her what she was doing, because she came back to, he was waiting for her at the church where she lives, and she came in with all the waiters and equipment. He looking at her like, what you got going on? And he's like that she was able to get in with Mina, so she can get into Roxxon to see, you know, to find out what she can find out, basically. So O'Reilly, she's actually looking at this map, and she basically has certain areas on the map circled. And so O'Connor comes over and asks her, okay, so what do you have going on? And she was, you know, she's telling him just enough, I guess, so that he could, to keep him close. I don't know. It seems, you know, it's like she's letting him know that she has some information to keep him, I guess, involved, keep him, I guess, nearby. I don't know how to explain it, but she was like, yeah, I see, you know, there's a pattern here. And she was talking about the lady that she had pulled from the club that gets the drugs and, you know, sells the drugs. And he was like, oh, that lady gave you all this information? She said, oh, no, she skipped town. But, you know, I have been following some of the people, and she had, like, photos on her phone that she showed him. He's like, oh, look at that. So he's, like, really like, okay, she's knowing more than I would like. And then she's like, yeah, I keep following them, and it seems like, you know, even though I can never track them back to the source, but it seems like it usually falls in this area. So she was circling some area on the map, and he's like, you can see, like, oh shit, she's getting a little close. And so he said, well, you mind if I, you know, it seemed like, you know, I'm familiar with that area, so do you mind if I tag along? And she's like, oh, no, only if I get to drive. So they're heading out. So O'Connor walks out ahead of her, and so she's walking out behind, and the cop who tried to warn her, he had this like really worried look on his face, and they kind of made eye contact, and he's like, oh shit. So it's like, it's known that he's a dirty cop, but at the same time he's a detective. He's like, I don't know, a hero or whatever. And it's like the cop, you know, he's I guess caught between a rock and a hard place. And he's also, I mean, people are also afraid of O'Connor. So that's just the fucked up situation that tells you about the police, the state of the police in this country. Even though it's a fictional story, it has a ring of truth to it, doesn't it? Anyway, okay, then we flash to Evita and her aunt, and she was basically telling her that I think that something is coming, and I think that your man maybe have some connection to it. And she was like, what are you talking about? She was like, you remember the stories that I told you about what's on the mantle? And it was basically those dolls, and they're always in pairs. She said, I think your man Ty might have some connection to what's about to come. And so Evita was like, what do you think? It's some type of disaster, like a hurricane or something? She was like, it's something, and I just can't quite put my finger on it. So she's still going through the process of trying to pinpoint what in the world is coming that's going to hit New Orleans. So, yeah. Okay, so Evita's still talking to her aunt, and they made mention of the divine pairing. Like, in the end, there's always two people, and who's been selected to avert this catastrophe. Okay, so she's still trying to figure out. And she's trying to figure out if Tyrone is one half of that dynamic. Okay, so Tandy and Mina, they're walking and talking. It's kind of hard to see because, Tandy is a con artist. So it's like she's talking to Mina, but it's almost like, she's kind of real with her. She was just asking her about her father, and of course Mina didn't answer. She changed the subject. They started talking about bees and started having this conversation about extinction and all this kind of stuff. And so Nita said, I have something I want to show you. And so she was talking about this valve that she created. And so she was asking her about the valve, and she said, yeah, the thing is, what they were drilling for wasn't oil. It was some other kind of material or energy source or something like that. And the old rig, the valve, they couldn't take it. So whatever the source, whatever this power is, or this other source of power, it was way too powerful, and that's what caused the explosion. And so she was tasked with finding a way to contain it, creating a system that's able to withstand it. And so she created the valve. And so she goes over to look at it, and there's a guy who works for the company, forget his name, Stan. And so he was telling her that it's running hot. And so they go over to look at it, and while she's taking a look at it, first Mina couldn't understand why that is. And then Tandy was looking at the actual schematic and showing where the valve is supposed to be, where all the valves are. Mina said that she created the valve, and she created release points all over the city so that the pressure doesn't build up in one area, is able to get out. And so Tandy was looking at the schematic, and she was like, well, the reason you're probably having this issue is because it's not where it's supposed to be. It's 10 meters off. And so of course Mina is like, okay, of course. So she goes back over to Stan and tells him a new one, and he was like, well, it would have we would have had to get a bulldozer in to dig this up. And basically he cut corners when he installed this thing. So you've already had an explosion before, which caused several lives, billions of dollars, and you decided you're going to cut corners. So basically, she would tell him, you know what? Why don't you stay in the office next time tomorrow in the AC, and I'll bring a crew out here, and I'll install it myself. And so he got an attitude, was like, okay, well, you don't have to be a bitch about it. Yes, she does, because lives are at stake, asshole. Okay. So now, Tandy's getting more and more information. Okay, it wasn't oil, it's some type of new energy that they've found. Okay. O'Reilly and Connor, so they're driving around, and he was talking to her about the drug dealers, and she was, mentioning that, yeah, she does use recreationally, but just because she uses doesn't mean she's going to let them off the hook. And he was like, the key to catching a person is to kind of get inside their mind. If you get inside their mind, you can kind of predict how they're going to react. And she was like, well, you get inside their mind and you may become them. And so they're driving, and they come across a group of guys who were standing around, clearly selling drugs. And so, I keep trying to make O'Connor's name because Connor. He says, okay, stop, pull over right now. So she pulls over, skirt. And of course, they all haul ass. All the guys haul ass. They dropped their bags or whatever they had on them. So Connor takes off one way. Riley, she's looking for whatever it is that they dropped. She can't find the bag because Tyrone was nearby and he scooped up the bag. Okay, so Connors catches up with the drug dealer that I believe that's the same drug dealer that Tyrone had ran up on, and he pulled the gun on Tyrone in an alley. And so he was beating the guy's ass. Like, you need to tell your boss, Dwayne, that I need to meet with him, and this is about saving his ass. And so Riley walks up as he was punching the guy. He was fucking the guy up. So she's there looking at him, and he was like, you don't have any. So he looked at Riley, and Riley's like, well, I didn't see anything. I looked, but I didn't see anything. And so the drug dealer was like, well, you don't have anything except payback coming your way. And so he was like, just get out of here. So he ends up leaving. And he looked at his car, and I was like, I didn't see anything. And he looked at Riley, and Riley was like, I didn't see anything. I looked, but there was nothing there. And so he's like, whatever. Let's just go. And so then you see Tyrone walking with the bag, and somehow the drug dealer catches up with him, and he's trying to snatch the bag. And Tyrone was like, no, I didn't give you anything. And so the drug dealer goes for his gun. Of course, Tyrone grabs him, and now he's inside his head, and you can see the darkness, the fear, and all that kind of stuff. And so it looks like, I don't know if that was the entity in that guy's mind was supposed to be the Grim Reaper, but it was scared the crap out of him. And so he was trying to find a way out, and Tyrone was kind of blocking his way out, just like he wanted the fear to kind of, he really wanted to stick it to this guy, because obviously he don't want the guy to pull a gun on him and shoot him. And so once he felt like he had scared him sufficiently enough, you saw them flash back, and the guy kind of looked at Tyrone and just ran off. Okay, so Dwayne is getting a phone call from the drug dealer that that the drugs were stolen or gone. He basically doesn't have them anymore. As Tyrone is walking in with the bag, so he gets off the phone with Tyrone, with the dealer, and he's like, "Oh, so what you doing here?" So he threw the bag. Tyrone threw the bag up on there. He's like, "What's this?" He said, "Well, this belongs to you." He's like, "You know what's in it?" He said, "Yeah, I told you I wanted to work for you." So he ended up calling another guy over to take the bag away. And he was like, okay, you know what? You want to work for me? So why don't we ride? Why don't you ride with me? Almost like a ride along to see what goes on out here. And then you could decide whether or not you about this life. So Dwayne gets a call from Connors. So Connors and Riley are back at the police station, and Connors is calling Dwayne to set up a meeting, so that they could, so he could tell him, be like, this is all supposed to be to just basically to save your ass. So they make plans to meet. So of course we're flashing back to Evita and her aunt, still talking about the divine pairing, and still trying to figure out what's going on. That's basically, at this point, that's all just been flashing back to them. And, they've been talking, talking about, about just basically the energy and the kind of stuff that the aunt is feeling that's letting her know that something's coming. Okay. So then we have Mina and Tandy. So Mina and Tandy heading back to Mina's place. Mina lives out in the woods, out in nature. And so she, throughout their entire time together, Tandy kept on mentioning Nina's father, kept asking about her father, and she's like she's not talking, giving, I was telling her who she is, because then she's not telling who her father is, because then he would know who she was, then Nina would know who she is. But she kept asking about her dad and saying, yeah, I knew a guy like that, and he would, go from school to school and talk about science, and he did this, that, and the third. She really was talking about him very fondly. And so eventually, she asked her one last time about her dad, and Mina was like, what's the deal? Why do you keep asking me about my father? And she said, I just, you just make him sound so cool. She was like, yeah, he is. So, but what's that to you? And she's like, what do you mean? She was like, that guy that you keep talking about, I forget the father's first name, something Bowen. So your name is not Liz, or I forget what Liz she did. You're Tandy. So, and you're a really horrible liar. And so now, Tandy, she caught, now she's standing there with the stuck face like, oh shit, now what do I say? And Mina's kind of looking at her like, okay, I'm waiting for a response. So, okay, so they've discovered the pattern with all of the pairings whenever a disaster hits. One dies, one lives. And at this point, they don't know which is which. They don't know where Ty fits in, and they don't know who the second half of this pairing is at this point. Okay, so Tyrone and Dwayne get back to his warehouse, and Dwayne was like, oh, you got hard. I didn't know you had it in you. You made it through the night, this whole, the whole thing, and, you've always had guts, you always, you always reached taller than you were. As far as you went and got that radio back that night, you jumped in the water after your brother got shot. And then, of course, you can see he stopped. And he's like, oh, shit, I didn't say too much. So now Tyrone's looking at him, and he said, okay, so you were there that night? He was like, he didn't say anything. He said, wait a minute. You know that this cop is dirty. You know this cop killed my brother, your friend, and you're in business with him? And are you crazy? And so Dwayne was like, you're crazy if you think you're going to use me to get at this cop. Like, we're not doing that. And so, of course, they went back and forth, and he was like, what do you want me to do? And Dwayne, and of course, Tyrone was like, well, stand up for your friend. He was your friend, my brother, and I can't believe, by all these years, my parents thought that I was lying. My parents think that I'm crazy, and all this time, you could have come forward, and you didn't, and he was your friend. And so that's when there was a knock at the door. It was Connor and Riley. Well, Riley stayed in the car. And so Connor told Riley, I'm going to go in and talk to my guy for a minute, and in 5 minutes I want you to come in with your gun drawn, or something to that effect. Okay. So before Connor walked in, Dwayne told Tyrone, go out the back. We'll talk later. This is important. You got to go. So instead of leaving, Tyrone, he walked like he was going to walk out the back. But he actually hid, and he stayed, I guess, to see what was about to go down. So as soon as Connor walked in, he throws Dwayne a gun, like an untraceable gun. And so, of course, Dwayne's like, what do you want me to do with this? He's like, in a minute, a cop is going to come through the door. I want you to shoot her. Dude was like, I'm not a shooter. And he was like, I don't act like you've never fired a gun before. He was like, not to kill. And before he knew it, he's basically like, you know what? This has to be done. I'm cleaning up your mess. And basically, we need to cover our ass. So what I'm thinking, what he was supposed to happen was that Riley was supposed to walk in, Dwayne was supposed to shoot Riley, killing her. That way, Connor would be justified in killing Dwayne for killing a cop. But that's not how it worked. Riley busts in. She was quicker on the draw. She ends up shooting Dwayne. Dwayne goes down. Of course, Tyrone has this emotional outburst. Now they know he's there. Connor runs after Tyrone. He runs out the back. They end up in an alley. And while Tyrone is running, he's like going in and out, like he's a puff of smoke and he's gone, and then he's back, and then he's back again, back again, then he's gone. And so the last time he disappeared completely, and so now Connor's is standing at the alley, like what, like not knowing what he just saw. Dwayne is dead on the floor. Okay, so eventually, so where Tyrone eventually ends up, he went back to the church where Tandy lives. Okay. So we flashed a little bit back for with Tandy. Actually, we find out that Mina's father isn't actually dead. He's in some facility. After that day, you know, he just wasn't the same since he's not communicating. He needs like round the clock care. And so Mina went to see him, and she, you know, was basically just talking to him like, you know, she would any other time, even though he can't respond. He's like mentally, he's not even. There's no eye contact. He's just sitting there humming to himself or something. So, Tandy walks in, and she apologized to Mina, and Mina's like, why didn't you just tell me the truth? If you would have just told me the truth, I would have brought you to come to see him. And of course, Tandy stands there like, what's that? Like, the truth, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. Like, she basically told her, like, you know, I don't know, like, I lie all the time, is what she told her. And so the truth never even occurred to me. And so Mina's sitting there like, the truth never occurred to you? And so she asked if she could sit and talk to him. And Mina was like, I mean, you could sit, but, you know, he's not going to be able to respond. And so she sat down and she touched him. And she went inside his mind. And when she turned around, what she saw was almost like a bunker or something. You know, one of those doors where you have to like turn to open the door. And so she went to touch the door, but couldn't. It kind of shocked her, and she, you know, came back to reality. And I'm thinking, like, that's where he is mentally. Like, once she's able to get that door, I'm just assuming that once you're able to get the door open, then he'll be more like himself. Like, his memories will come back. He'll be more, I guess, normal. I don't know. But whatever, at that point in time, it wouldn't let her near the door. Whatever energies around there wouldn't let her in. So, you know, she thanked her, and she went back to the church. So, now we're back at the church. Tyrone jumps in, and she turns around and she looks at him, and he's standing there with this horrified look on his face. And she was like, Tyrone, what's going on? And then she gets closer to him, and he just starts breaking down crying, and she goes in to console him, but she couldn't. There's something about their powers that kind of repel the other they can't really touch each other. And so he's standing there crying. He hasn't really said he hasn't told her what was going on. He's still trying to make sense of it. And she can't really console him. So now she's, you know, so they're basically just looking at each other with this like sorrowful look on their faces. And I mean, that's basically how this episode ends. So yeah, that's it on that. And I will see you guys in the next video.